Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us as we take a retrospective look at the last 12 months. Now 2022 almost felt like the world inched several steps closer to pre-pandemic life in 2019. One might argue that the last 12 months signaled a crucial turning point for the world to move on from the devastating impacts of COVID-19. However, the pandemic's lingering effects continue to manifest in all facets of life. Future historians may regard 2022 as a hinge in history, marking the end of one era and the beginning of the other. In our own modest way, we at the Bubb Report attempted to bring nuance and context to the big stories that made headlines in Grenada, the Caribbean, and its vast diaspora. We sat with thought leaders, political figures, economists, educators, change makers, youth leaders, environmental activists, and community organizers in our bid to hold true to our commitment to facilitating balanced, educated, well-informed, and intelligent discourse in this digitally mediated world. But first, we reflect and remember those we lost last year. Many Grenadians who dedicated their lives to education, the banking sector, the hospitality industry, business, media, sports, community service, law, and entertainment transitioned in 2022. I personally also lost my father, the late Trevor Jim Williams, originally of Grenville Street in St. George's, but who resided in Tempe. As we remember these great Grenadians, I am reminded of something that Nancy Cobb said, quote, "Remembering is an act of resurrection. Each repetition a vital layer of mourning in memory of those we are sure to meet again," unquote. These Grenadians practice the art of the possible and will be missed for what they accomplished for their fellow citizens and their country. May they rest in peace, and may their memories be a blessing. 2022 saw the return of in-person events and increased domestic and international travel. Pent-up travel demand saw Grenadians in the diaspora eager to experience adventure or visit friends and family back home, outweighing concerns about current events and COVID-19. What's more, travelers continue to plan indulgent trips, acting on what has come to be called revenge travel, where people finally follow through on events like weddings, vacations, and family reunions. One such family reunion was held in 2022 as the Presentation Brothers College Grenada, my alma mater, and the second oldest all-boys school on the island, celebrated 75 years of service to the national community.
After 75 years, PBC have produced lots of sons, also daughters anyway. There were at one time a population of girls from SJC and other schools that came to PBC. As a case in point is, I think one of the PBC alumni USA is also a member, is also a member of went to PBC. In terms of what we're going to have anyway, in terms of that we are trying to ensure that we rope in everybody that went to PBC, because what we have done over the past years in terms of the 50th and 60th anniversary is that it didn't encompass everybody, but this 75th anniversary seemed to be locked in people all over the world anyway. People as far as what I think was Germany, there's somebody in London anyway too. And we are hoping at the end of this, or at the end of this we are able to ensure that we capture all the old boys there, to ensure, because they have varying skill sets that we hope to capture, we like to capture, and we ensure, that we would at least be able to highlight what areas, as we say, that we contributed to nation building. We want to make sure that the fact that we have the statistics at the end of the day to show you that these are all areas and all facets of life that reflects, that PBC, you can find a PBC guy being involved.
The previous NNP administration introduced to Parliament a bill that sought to decriminalize the use of marijuana and for anyone over the age of 18 to have no more than 28 grams in their possession for personal use. We debated the issue in the first quarter of 2022. Fast forward to the end of last year, the current NDC administration constituted a 12-member commission on cannabis legalization and regulation, whose task includes holding broad-based consultations and engaging in public awareness on the policy decision to legalize cannabis within a legal and regulatory framework.
There's over 50,000 different products you could be making from cannabis, and that was in 1938. If we're still only focusing on smoking or on the conversation around smoking, we have lost, and we will be lost. We will be lost. There is many more things to be done with cannabis.
But except well, you keep saying that, and I'm going to push back there. But as the minister articulated, and as well as Claude Joseph articulated, this is bigger than smoking. So we can get away from the smoking angle. I'm not even talking about that. I'm not going to talk, go down that road. But there are other derivatives there, right? We're talking CDB, we're talking oils, we're talking, as you said, for COVID, right? COVID treatments and things like that.
Yeah, so but who's going to be the owners of these things is what we're trying to advocate. The reason why we're trying to advocate is so that when the law is struck, that at the end of the day, our Grenadian people are owners of the industry that we just created, and not again just service people for the industry that we continue to have. Right. We don't need to create another tourism industry.
Right. And Mr. David, I want to get your thoughts on that aspect of it.
I agree, Saisha, on that. I agree. And that is why I'm saying we have to proceed in a way, and maybe we're not proceeding as fast as some people would like. That is why I separated two issues. There's a decriminalization that we believe is urgent in order to get away from getting away from young people and persons who are very, very capable and so on, getting criminal records and messing their lives up, while taking into account the negative impact it can have on some people, as every other thing can. Then that benefits all of us in the end, because what we want is a united society around the industry of cannabis, not some people who are brought on board, kicking and screaming, and who do not support it. So you can refer to that
means, my brother, that means you haven't done your homework, because I can tell you that the people are already on board with this issue.
All of the people,
and we are going to be losing. We are going to be losing income.
So then we don't. Right? So then we don't need any
income if it is pursued in a piecemeal manner as you propose. We are going to have more chaos in the industry. It's going to become harder. It's going to be harder to regulate it if it is done in a piecemeal manner.
I am amazed
that
you're suggesting.
In some respects, Peter, we are saying the same thing. We both, since we introduced the CARICOM report to the people of Grenada, when I say we, I mean the NDC in 2020, when we introduced, the first thing we said is that it is time for our young people to stop being persecuted and prosecuted for having small quantities of the herb.
Well, and that's what we're doing.
We spoke of the decriminalization, but we also spoke of having it done in such a way that we reap the economic benefits, that funds derived go into the consolidated fund. You see, because what you have now, you have a proposed bit of legislation, right? And there is nothing partnering with that. For example, to deal with rehabilitation. We don't have a Carlton home. We do not have a Carlton home. If you look at the
which comes under the Ministry of Health.
Yeah. Yes. So let us come up for some air. Let us come up for some air.
I hope the member is not suggesting that we need to stop our consultation and just pass legislation, because that would be totally undemocratic.
But you see, and when you're ready, you legislate. But you don't legislate because an election is around the corner, which is what is happening here with respect.
Which is deeply offensive to people like me, Claudette, because I have spent the last 20 years advocating on this issue. So it is deeply offensive to people like myself, who have spent my entire political and legal career making the same point. So,
former Prime Minister and current opposition leader Dr. Keith Mitchell signaled his intention to call an early election. During the lead up to the June 23rd election in Grenada, the Bubb Report snagged one-on-one interviews with some of the caretaker candidates of the two major parties vying to send representatives to the country's parliament.
I'm very humbled for the opportunity to serve people of the South St. George constituency. I'm really excited about this. I think that we can do wonderful things. There are significant opportunities. There are life-changing opportunities that we can get done. And I'm a doer. I'm a result-oriented person. That is what I do. I love results. Some things must make sense. I don't like to skulk around. And again, one of the things about me is that if I say that I'm going to do something for you, I will do it. I'm a kind of stickler for my word. If I can't do something, I will say I can't do it. I don't traffic in what people may say bamboozling. I don't traffic in that at all. I think it's unproductive. I think it doesn't help neither myself nor whoever I serve. I think so. So it's easy for me, and so I can have a peaceful night rest. So I can wake up fresh and serve.
So that you have a clear conscience. No bamboozling from Senator Cox. All right. Let's see what the population thinks about that. Now,
I saw your interview with Kalishra, I believe, on that, so I know what your views are. That's a debate that I don't even undertake. Look, I believe strongly that individuals should know when it's their time. It's not for you or I, right? And I believe the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell have served Grenada honorably, and he had done great things for this nation, and he would know. And only him would know when is his time. In regards to succession, I think, look, there's always, in any organization you are, there is always talk of succession and stuff. So it's amazing when people that's on the outside of the organization tend to say that, well, there's no succession plan. But how do you know there's no succession plan? Are you sitting at executives meeting? Are you there? I mean, I know we have a tendency and we feel that we are entitled, but I think whatever is the organization, whatever is NNP succession plan, is not something that needs to be debated in the public sphere. That's for the organization and the group. So
I cannot think of a more dedicated and committed team player than my good friend, Brother Adrian. And he, I think, is in the best position to say why he has not been able to attend certain functions. So I will not venture into the realms of speculation about that. Regarding alleged tension in the party, I'm not aware of any tension in the party. The question about so-called old guard and new guard, that is an invention of, well, I don't want to blame the media or any.
Well, it's not an invention. It's a reality. You do have younger people that are being infused in the organization. How then do you define that?
What this shows is that the NDC is serious about generational change in leadership. We do not believe that any one person or one generation has a monopoly on wisdom, has a monopoly on foresight and insight. And we believe that in order for an organization to remain relevant, to grow, and to place itself to face emerging challenges, there must be a regeneration of leadership.
And both programs are essentially attempting to define your team in the NDC as people who are novices. And the thesis is that you cannot use a novice in a time of crisis. In other words, you cannot use a pilot who has been trained to fly a Cessna to then take over a Boeing 777 jet. What say you on that positioning of the ruling administration?
The issue of leadership, Dr. Bubb, is a dialogue that I stay away from. I am going to answer your question, though, out of respect. But the issue of leadership is a dialogue that I stay away from simply because it isn't worth dignifying with a response. We have been privy to,
but I think there is merit to the point. to say that you can't dignify it with a response, I think that is the kind of debate that we need to have in the society.
Yes, and I agree. And I said I was going to answer your question, but for other individuals who may just regularly meet me on a daily basis in the city and would want to speak about the issue of leadership, I tend to stay away from the dialogue simply because I don't think that it's a dialogue that is substantial or one that is worth having. We must start somewhere, Dr. Bubb. Youth in politics, or politics involving youth, or youthful energy or vigor, we must start somewhere. And I would like individuals to let me know, or to let us know, those of us who are youthful, as it relates to age and vigor, let us know at what age should we actually get into the political arena. Is it 40? Is it 45? Is it 50? Because on the issue of leadership, Dr. Bubb, I do not understand how you have led for over, 38, almost 4 decades at the constituency level and almost 3 decades at the prime ministerialship level. And yet for all, at the end of all that years, you cannot find a suitable successor. You know, and I look at our current parliamentarians, and a number of them started politics or came into the political arena in their 20s. Somebody saw the potential that they had and decided to invest in that potential, whether or not it was good for politics or whether or not it was good for the development of the country on a whole, but somebody saw the potential and decided to invest and harness that potential. And as a result, these parliamentarians over the years, they grew in their political craft.
And without, as you would appreciate, Kellon and your viewers, I can't on this platform divulge all our strategies and our methods that would result in a victory on election day. But what I can say is that we are placing quite the emphasis that is required on that large polling division. But as far as
not wanting to interrupt your thoughts, and of course you not wanting to divulge your strategy, but the strategy did not work the last time for you. So what would make this time different?
You're assuming that we're doing the same strategy.
Who is Claudette Joseph, and what can these people know about you? What should they know about Claudette Joseph?
First of all, Claudette Joseph is, I would say, I feel a little uncomfortable saying so to speak, but I am what can be described as a success story. I am a success story. I'm a little shy about these things, you know.
Well, you're shy. You say shy, but I mean, the people need to know about.
Yes,
I think the people need to have some sort of personal connection with the people that they're voting for. Yes,
and some of us, because of the the modesty that was ingrained in us growing up, it's to speak about yourself sometimes becomes a little uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. Just being very honest. But I was born and raised in the constituency of the town of St. George. My mother from the Cooper Hill side of the town, and my father from River Road. I still have family on both sides of the town, from my father's side and also from my mother's side, because my mother had two siblings rather, who resided in River Road and had children, and so in River Road and Dabo. So I like to describe myself as a real, authentic town girl. Spent all my life in the town, went to school at the Mother Rose and St. Joseph's Convent, and then at TAMCC until I went abroad to study. Born into poverty, had a difficult childhood with a single parent with 8 children, but was always very focused when it comes to school. Mommy spared no effort in ensuring that we all received a solid education, and she drummed in our heads that if you don't want to be poor as we are now when you grow up, you gotta do your schoolwork. You got to do well.
There was also the curiosity of 3 independent candidates who barked but failed to bite in the Grenadian election campaign cycle. Andrea Rapier, Earl Maitland, and Denison George attempted to not only form a loosely organized coalition for the election, but also filed an injunction to stop the June 23rd poll on constitutional grounds. Now, the court disagreed with their position, and the election went ahead as planned. The Grenada movement, which was all the craze in 2021, also failed to mount a single candidate for the last general election. Their status as an active political entity remains to be discovered. And speaking of active political entities, this election cycle marked the return of the Grenada United Labour Party to the fold. Unfortunately, they did not make the impact that they were expecting. At least with your public posture and with respect to your political ambitions, it would appear that those political ambitions were concealed up till now. Did you always have political ambitions?
I always had ambitions that Grenada will become the best that she can become and to do my part in it. And I think the head leads the body. So to be significant, to really have long-term impact, then leadership is important. And I do separate that specifically from politics, but politics is the ring in which you have to step in as a leader.
So why did you not telegraph that intention earlier? Why now, before an election?
Number one, because I'm a soldier and I believe in strategic planning and execution. And I don't think every time we do something in the public, we have to sound the trumpet. I think we just need to meet the needs when we see them. And I know someone like Earl Maitland has done that. Perhaps his entire time has been in Grenada, and I applaud him for that. So now that it is time to step into the boxing ring of politics, now I have to be more persistent, more insistent, more defined about what I see for the country, what my organization sees for the country, and sound the trumpet, because we've been listening to a lot of noise. And so now the trumpet must be strategic. So this was the time to do it. It was the right time to have the right impact that we want to have.
And while we are on the theme of elections, Deacon Mania also enveloped Grenada as the newly minted political leader of the National Democratic Congress captured the attention of the national community. He is the only politician in post-independence Grenada to lead his party to an electoral victory at the polls after assuming political leadership in less than a year. We sat with the newly minted political leader of the NDC for a one-on-one interview on the eve of the June 23rd poll. We also worked assiduously to have the political leader of the NNP as well on the platform. But like on previous occasions, he turned down our invitation. The party instead sent its Member of Parliament for St. Andrews Southeast and former Education Minister, the Honorable Emmeline Pear. This platform also came under heavy attack for proposing a national debate between the leaders, which Grenadian civil society advocated for since the early 2000s.
So if you're talking about a solid team that is ready to move Grenada forward, I would say at this stage, I see no other option but the new National Party government, the NNP. But also, I think track record is critical. The NDC has been changing leaders every Monday morning, very unstable, changing candidate every Tuesday evening, never sure of what its team would look like. And of course, I mean, these are not signs that you're ready to run a country. These are not signs that you're ready for governance, right? Your leader has been changed several times in the last 3 years. Obviously, this is not a good sign for leading anything, far less a country.
Is that as Grenadians, we should always be aspiring to ensure that we push the next generation of Grenadians to do better, to improve upon our own performance, and to encourage them and push them along. And that is the difference. And the National Democratic Congress has demonstrated through a democratic process that it has withstood the test of time, notwithstanding the many challenges it has gone through. And it has been able to allow a next generation of Grenadians to come through its ranks, to take up the leadership mantle, to excite the nation about the future prospect of Grenada. And we are doing so with homegrown Grenadians who have chosen to stay home to fight for Grenada and to fight for Grenadians. And that is ultimately what the National Democratic Congress stands for. That, we believe, is what Grenadians want. And we intend to champion the cause of Grenadianism throughout the next 5 years, once we are given the opportunity to do so by the citizens of Grenada.
Cadres pollster Peter Wickham predicted an NNP victory, but this prediction never came to pass.
I don't believe that there's anybody in Grenada who actually believes that he will lose the next election. Quite frankly, either his seat or alternatively that his party will lose the election. So the question is, what is this election about? The thing is that at this stage, I can't say with any confidence that he will win a seat in Parliament, and I don't know that a lot of people in Grenada are confident that he will. He has set the bar fairly low in the sense that he's not saying, I am campaigning to be the next Prime Minister of Grenada. He's basically said, I'm on a 10-year trajectory in terms of politics. I'm going to give this thing 10 years and let's see how it goes. I'm going to try and provide an alternative. So in a sense, he's saying, just give me a seat this time or a couple of seats and let's see what we can do once we get into Parliament. And that is an interesting strategy. One may argue that it's defeatist, but it's a very interesting strategy. What will be interesting also is if he does succeed in gaining a seat in Parliament, and then Dr. Mitchell goes and then he takes on another leader, and how those two will match up, because that would be interesting.
The opposition NDC went on to win the June 23rd poll after 9 years of being locked out of the Grenadian Parliament. And pollster Peter Wickham, who initially predicted an NNP win, was hard-pressed to explain how he got it so wrong, and how the Canadian-based data scientist Dr. Justin Pear of Grenadian Heritage got it so right. Mr. Wickham, how did you get this prediction so wrong? It would appear as if you underestimated the mood on the ground. What was it about the atmospherics that you did not get right, Mr. Wickham?
Let me be clear, Kelton, and I need to say this for the benefit of yourself and other people in Grenada that seem anxious to rub my nose in the fact that I am so happy for the leader of the NDC. I am so happy for the young man who is now Prime Minister of Grenada, and I want to do here, as I did on television in Grenada election night, is to congratulate him heartily. I have no difficulty acknowledging the fact that my expectations were off mark. I was in Grenada election day and election night, and I am convinced that the expectations of a lot of other people were consistent with my expectations. The reality, however, was entirely different, and I think that it's not a situation where I think that the NDC is anxious and persons that support the NDC to jump for joy and say, we were able to prove Wickham wrong. Did you prove Wickham wrong in 2018? When you lost all the seats? Did you prove Wickham wrong in 2013 when you lost all the seats? My thing is that it's not a competition in terms of polling. I think it's a situation where we have to acknowledge what is the objective of an analysis. You asked me questions at that time and I answered based on my explanation. March of 2020 was an interesting time because we polled in March of 2020.
So Mr. Wickham, you did a poll. There was a poll that was conducted.
I did several polls, yeah.
You did several polls, but in the last time you came on the program, we were asking you whether you did a poll, but you were very coy about that. So, but thanks for letting us know that you did a poll.
No, but Dr. Pear did polls too, and I don't recall anybody asking him about them. But why? You see, this is what fascinates me, Dr. Pear could come on this program and say, I did polls historically.
But his polls conversation. His polls. No, I'm saying in the context of this. No, I'm speaking in the context of this election, and the question I'm trying to get at. Peter, please, if I may, if there was a poll commissioned by the New National Party, I think that's the question I'm trying to ask for this election. Were they seeing that? Dr. Pear, who commissioned your poll?
Well, a client that wanted to invest in Grenada. So a client wanted to invest in Grenada. The client hired us to conduct the poll. We did, but we looked at the poll from a different perspective.
The kind of question that you ask me all the time: why was the poll not made public? Is this something that the public can have access to? Why we
and these are questions.
These are questions that you ask me. So I'm just wondering why you're not asking him those same questions.
Well,
actually, let me make it clear that I think any benefactor has the right to commission the polls, and I will also tell you that the Cadres polls were paid for. Polls were paid for by persons who invested in Grenada that had interest in knowing what the political environment was, because that is an entirely logical thing.
I think
so. Let's hear about the ties to the NDC, because it's fairly clear.
So Dr. Pei, do you have ties? Do you have ties to the National Democratic Congress, Dr. Pei? Or rather, were you commissioned by the NDC to do this poll?
Information because it seems interesting that a lot of your advice is very consistent with what was said. Brilliant advice, no question about it. But it's useful that it made its way into the right circles, and the message from Dickon Mitchell was spot on, and he won. Congratulations. So congratulations to you, Dr. Pei.
Dr. Pei of Dunn, Pei, Barnett and Company accurately predicted a 9-seat victory for the National Democratic Congress.
Included a lot of what is called artificial intelligence in making projections. So we helped AI with the use of artificial intelligence to help us properly predict. Even though we knew that the NDC was going to win. In fact, we had predicted most of we predicted 9 and 10, and eventually won. But when we went on the ground in 2020, so we had 19 focus groups. So we went on the ground. We found out that things were not what we were hearing on the internet and on the social media was sort of different to what is on the ground. So
in 2022, after many years of a protracted legal battle through the courts, Justice Ralston Glasgow of the OACS Supreme Court ruled at the end of March that the 1983 Pensions Disqualification Act was in fact unconstitutional. His judgment will ensure that from now on, all public officers will be paid pension and gratuity upon retirement from Grenada's public service.
If the government, the administration at the time, had treated with this 2018 situation in a better manner, in a more honest manner, the matter would not have gone before the court. So we would not have had that judgment today. But God is God, and I guess he recognized that what was happening there was not of the best, and so it turned out how it turned out. And thank God, today you have a victory from the court.
The Glasgow judgment required immediate payments to those already retired, and provisions were made for those who would retire in due course. This ruling has heightened the debate on pension reform in Grenada, owing to the fact that it may impact the fiscal purse of the state in significant ways.
If there was a greater effort to pay gratuity and pension, and in fact the union went backwards, they bent backwards to assist government, because I remember in the MOU, the government was going to pay workers in terms of the pension itself about 70% or 70-something%, but they were supposed to pay us our full gratuity. And that is where the discrepancy came, is when they refused to pay the gratuity. So as it turns out, we end up benefiting on the long term.
What motivated you to take that critical step of litigation, of legal action, initially, looking back?
I should say that right is right, and persons should be rewarded for their labor. And what got me to it is to bring out an awareness, because some persons were getting pension after 2 terms in office, right? And the persons that work for 26 years plus not getting anything. It's just unfair.
As the government slowly lifted COVID mandates on the island, they also announced the return of official carnival celebrations with great fanfare. We covered the build-up to Spice Mass 2022, as well as the aftermath of both the Carriacou Carnival and the Grenada Carnival. Some concluded that the 2022 Carnival was perhaps one of the worst events on the national calendar in a while. 2022 also marked the end of an era for one of Grenada's most talented calypso artists, Finley Scholar Jeffrey, who telegraphed to the national community that last year was to be his last year participating in competitive aspects of Carnival, including the Soca and Calypso Monarch events, respectively. The history-making Calypso king from the north retired undefeated, but said he will be inspiring a new generation of artists in Grenada.
Public Relations Officer of the Virgin Parish Cultural Organization. Looking back at Carnival in St. David, I would say it was definitely a success. The organization hosted 2 events, the first on Carnival Sunday, Camberley. We had 2 centers, one at Derek Andrews' shop in Argyle and Windsor Forest, and the other at Sugar Hole in New Cane. At the centers, we had food to give out, we had drinks, music, traditional mass. We saw some jab came out, we had the lighting of the flambeau, we had maypole, we had a number of activities. The center in New Cane had a really large turnout, and we were really pleased with that, and people enjoyed themselves asking for it next year.
If we are, on the other hand, trying to become that unique carnival that people every single year since I got involved was building and building and building, right? If that is what we want, us to have our own unique experiences at Carnival, I think we are damaging it, and I don't know if we can ever get it back. I don't.
We must be mindful when we speak about foreigners and foreign. And that's the other issue with regards that I spoke on a program with regards to the issue of Grenada's CSME obligation. Now, just as how you have the Trinidadians investing in banks and insurance companies here in Grenada, so too they are investing in the creative industry and in Carnival, and they involved in the Carnival product, not just in Grenada, but throughout the region. So this, what we are discussing here, is not uniquely Grenadian, because you find that the Trinidadians are all over the Caribbean, in Barbados, in St. Lucia, and so on. They're investing heavily in the Carnival product. So that is something we have to look at. But getting back to what Bobby said too, which is absolutely critical, and I mentioned it on the Callistra's program, I think on Friday, is the consciousness of Grenadians. Everybody say we are the Trinis coming, the Feds are coming, and so on, and we're not uniquely Grenadian, but we're not supporting our own. when the Grenadian artists are putting on their own fetes and so on, do we go and do we support them? Do we support our local promoters and so on? Do our local promoters feature or use Grenadian artists as headline acts and so on? So it boils down to a certain respect, our own consciousness of how we do things.
It has been a struggle, an uphill battle, a battle back and forth. It's been a trying time for me as their president, trying to get them the representation that they need, which they haven't really had for the past years. But I came in with the glee and excitement that, you know, we're going to be able to partner with the SMC board to bring the association forward. But we have to admit that with the advent and the influence of the so-called non-competing or foreign bans have really dampened to a large extent our relationship with SMC.
One of the viral stories that surrounded Spice Mass 2022 was the imbroglio involving Grenadian World Athletic Champion Anderson Peters and the crew of the Trinidadian party boat, the MV Harbour Master. Amateur video captured the tail end of a fight in which Peters accused the crew of assaulting him. We also discussed the issue from a port administration and maritime safety perspective.
So when this captain behaved in that fashion and became part of the madness that was taking place as a consequence of the absence of proper procedures, for example, I'll read them to you. The powers of authorized officers, such as the one spoken there, they ought to be on the ship at all times, take charge of the ship. The captain ought not to find himself in such a brawl, because now he has lost the immunity that international maritime law has bestowed upon him. And I would suspect that an investigation ought to be conducted to inquire into his capacity, mental capacity and otherwise, to continue in that position. Because all he had to do was to call for help. Look at it. I mean, the Act makes provision for it. And the Act penalizes those who derogate from it. Look at Section 19. It outlines all the general powers of the authority.
The geopolitical fallout from the Russia-Ukraine war also took center stage on the Bubb Report. We examined how the conflict affected oil and commodity prices in Grenada and the rest of the Caribbean.
We basically have to speak about our input supplies and where we get most of our input supplies from in terms of production, for crop production. Most of our fertilizer, and so Russia, Ukraine, quite a significant percentage of the input supplies come from this part of the region. So just looking at it from that, you can see that all of the pillars of food security would be directly affected. So we're talking about food availability, food access, even food utilization and food sustainability would in some way be severely affected. Mia Motley, Prime Minister of Barbados, she would have alluded to that, and she would have spoken to, you know, having some safety nets currently. The question then is, how long will these safety nets last? Considering what is going on now with Ukraine and Russia, it's fluid in that we don't know how long this war is going to last, and we don't know how long our current safety will be as it relates to food security. So from judging from those vulnerabilities as a region, I would definitely say that we are or would be directly impacted by what is happening with Russia and Ukraine.
The kind of condemnation we are seeing in the media now for Russia's invasion of Ukraine, it is not the same kind of condemnation we saw for the American invasion and occupation of Afghanistan, of Iraq, of the NATO assault on Libya, and the assassination of President Gaddafi. So clearly, they are prepared to do whatever they need to do. Because if you take this contextually, And there was a very good piece in the newspaper, I think in New York Times, the Washington Post yesterday or the day before, by Henry Kissinger, former celebrated Secretary of State of the United States. And he talked about the historical connection between the Ukraine and Russia, going all the way back to the 15th, 16th century. And for a hawk like Kissinger, I think Kissinger is strategic, however, in his thinking, and has said, whereas Putin and the Russian leadership need to allow for all levels of economic cooperation with the Ukraine from Western societies, Kissinger was of the view that, look, because of that close connection, you have to understand and allow for Russian sensibilities. It must be remembered, that part of this conflict, we can go all the way back to the 1990s, 1991, 1992, at the collapse of the Soviet Union.
The Grenadian CBI program also came under heavy criticism from some in the national community against the backdrop of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. We examined the impact of the program on Grenada. In the wake of the NDC party's victory at the polls, its new leader and prime minister also shed light on the problematic nature of another scheme, and that is the diplomatic passport scheme. He chided the previous government for running a questionable diplomatic passport program, which encouraged grift and financial impropriety.
Look, I wrote an article a while back called My Top 10 Beefs with CBI Program, and I had the kind of difficulty to figure out which one was the only 10, but there are many. It lacks transparency. It is a flawed financing model. And we are creating a demographic group, a change in the demographics of Grenada that we're not really sure how this is going to play out. Already the price of land is going up in southern St. George's and so on, where locals are being priced out of the market by CBI projects and CBI individuals who are building houses and so forth and so on. So we're seeing these kind of impacts come already. We're a small island. We've got 112,000 people, and we've issued 7,000 passports, or have we? We don't even know. It lacks transparency, and it is creating a skewed investment model for Grenada. Right? We're ignoring investment in other areas that are needed on the altar of big hotel projects, and that's no way to run an economy.
We challenged former Foreign Affairs Minister Oliver Joseph on the NNP administration's appointment of Justin Soon as Grenada's ambassador to the World Trade Organization. And that has to do with Grenada's ambassador to the World Trade Organization, Mr. Justin Soon, who is himself a cryptocurrency investor. But after a meeting he held with the Russian ambassador to the WTO, and I'm quoting now, he said, quote, "I just had a courtesy Zoom call with Ambassador of Russia to the WTO. We discussed humanitarian use case of how blockchain like Bitcoin can be implemented for Russian civilians who lack access to financial payment systems. Hope we can collaborate," unquote. Now, Minister Joseph, is Mr. Soon speaking there on his own behalf, or is he speaking on behalf of the government and people of Grenada? Because that certainly speaks to a kind of conflict of interest there. If you are representing Grenada at the World Trade Organization, but here you are talking about, in many respects, ostensibly wanting to skirt sanctions by having monies invested in an alternative market system. So I would give you the chance to respond.
No, well, he was not speaking on behalf of the government of Grenada. The government of Grenada is not in blockchain technology. Justin is his business, blockchain technology and using cryptocurrency. He was speaking in his personal capacity. However, as a new ambassador, I don't think he clearly understands how you separate these two. Now, if you're addressing anyone and you use the title of His Excellency, it gives the impression that you're speaking as the ambassador.
I mean, that is his Twitter handle, Minister, and I would push back, but I would push back there. Why would we have ambassadors representing the state that do not understand clearly what their terms of reference are?
No, not that you don't understand it, everything. It's just that he has his business and he's promoting his business. And if it was not for the war in Ukraine, that post or the tweet would not even draw anybody's attention because he does that all over the world and all the time. So he's just assuming, well, that's his normal course of business. But we wrote to him a strong letter, saying to him, first of all, to speak on behalf of Grenada, you must get instruction from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And you must clear any statement that you wish to make as Grenada's ambassador with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So that was not done, and in his mind, he was addressing the issue as Justin Sun, cryptocurrency owner and blockchain technology.
Okay, so let me play a clip here from Mr. Anselm Clouden, who appeared on Calistro Faria's program, The Narrative, and I want you to get your response to that.
How could he say, or be heard to say, that Mr. Sun can divorce his business interests from his ambassadorial appointment? That's why he's appointed in the first case. This is an infantile statement by the minister, and he should resign for embarrassing his office. He has to give instructions to Mr. Sun. Mr. Sun shouldn't be heard to speak without instructions from the foreign ministry.
All right, that was Mr. Anselm Clouden there, a former senator, a former legislator, also former ambassador. He's asking for your resignation. I don't think that's something you might be doing. This is an election cycle, sir. But let me get you to respond.
No, that's his view. I'm not responding on his view.
Okay.
He expressed his view. Since I've become a public figure, I do not respond to people's personal view. Everybody will have a view.
Criminal justice took center stage in September when 40-year-old British citizen and wife killer Alexander Clark, who strangled his spouse and buried her body in a suitcase in a shallow grave in Grenada, walked free. He only served 8 years of his 67-year sentence and was released on a legal loophole.
Ruggles Ferguson, I'll start with you first. You are the former president of the Grenada Bar Association. Concerning last week's ruling in the case of Clark versus the state, were you surprised at the outcome?
No, I was not. In the sense that if an appeal is filed, as an appellant has a right to do, if dissatisfied with a High Court ruling, and the court does not have the material to process that appeal, as the appellant has a right to have his appeal heard, then the court, in a sense, has no alternative after giving opportunities to have the full transcript prepared, because the court cannot effectively do its work without having the benefit of the material before the High Court, the evidence that was led, the summation of the trial judge, and that's when the judges summon up the entire case to the jury. If you don't have that, then and the appeal cannot be effectively processed, then the court, in a sense, is left with no alternative but to take the course of action that it did.
Some of our most notable moments of 2022 involved spirited debates between opinion leaders and public pundits who offered commentaries on issues that animated life in the national community.
This is not a Ruggles Ferguson.
Yes, Senator. Yes,
so
Senator. I get what you're saying. We have to get.
Is important. We have to get. Before. And
yes, it was. But Senator, we have to get to the other topic.
Yeah, but I'm saying this is a very important discussion.
I know we will get to that. We will get to the other topic at this point.
This is not a reflection of a Democrat-level party. This is a reflection of this society. You have homophobes in the Barbados Labour Party and the Democrat Labour Party. You have misogynists in the Barbados Labour Party and the Democrat Labour Party. The parties pull from the society. it pulls from the system.
You have homophobes in the world. You have homophobes in the world. But it is a political party that takes a principled stand.
Dr. Brathwaite, let Mr. Bruce finish. Let Mr. Bruce finish, please.
Let me finish. You have a circumstance where the political leader has said several times up to last night that is not a reflection of her personal views or the views of the party. And you understand, George, how elections at the party level works.
And by virtue of the instrument of appointment from the Public Service Commission, is entitled to receive his pension, can do that and will get his pension and gratuity this year. And I put my head on a block and I offer Mr. Brother Bishop the scalpel to cut it off.
Claudette, good luck with everything.
You too, man.
Well, all right. Well, may the best candidate win in the town of St. George.
I had to be nice to her. She said, either way she gonna be there, so I had to be nice to her. You never know.
But look at that, folks. We can have these conversations in a spirit of congeniality.
We're good.
Yes. All right.
You've been there for a long time. Want to be queen of St. Andrews, but yet the problems around you you're not seeing. You can't pray yourself out of the problems in St. Andrews. You must stand up as a senior member. You are more senior than the others, and identify the problems in St. Andrews and deal with it. And stop trying to pass the buck and giving handouts. Handouts not solving problems, unfortunately.
Callers call because Kem Jones, the talk show business and pushing an NDC agenda, and some of them pushing an NNP, meaning the callers or calling in as pro-NNP supporters and so on. And nothing wrong with that. But for me,
yeah, but you said nothing wrong with that. But I've heard how you handle some callers. You tell them go on bait or
that's
or whatever it is.
That's satire. That's a little humor. In Grenada, talk radio. Controversy makes Kem Jones, and talk radio. Generally speaking, when people attack me and they say certain things about me, I use it to get 300 or 400 more people to view or listen to the program. I thrive on that controversy.
Kem, it is not a lack of bravery to call someone's name. If you understand the conversation we're having, the conversation was about dialogue and discourse and having it in a humble manner. So instead of calling people's name to stray off topic, if we can stay on topic, that'd be better. But since you challenged my bravery, Kem, you have said some very, very, very interesting things here. And if you're not careful with how and what you say on radio, you will cause people to fight here.
On the 19th of October, I will be 83 years old. God is good and God looks after me. Not just my wife is no longer here. So both herself and the father up there are looking after me very, very well indeed. I did not live my best life when I was in politics. I went into politics to serve. And there's absolutely nobody within any political party that would have anything to say about Jocelyn Whiteman.
Each new year offers an exciting opportunity for a fresh start and new beginnings, which is probably why we all look forward to New Year's Eve so much. No matter what your goals are for the coming year, or how many New Year's resolutions you plan on making for 2023, ringing in the start of a new year is a moment to acknowledge because it is a blessing in and of itself. Let us do away with notions of resolutions and embrace each day as an opportunity to do good and to make a positive impact. I also hope that in this year to come, you make mistakes, because if you are making mistakes, then you are making new things. You are trying new things. You are learning. You are living. You are pushing yourself. You are growing and changing yourself. And you're also changing the world around you. You're doing the things you